Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Lloyd, and I am a huge fan of cars used in old British TV series filmed between the late 1950s and late 1990s. Join me on a journey as we look back on over 40 years of British television and its relationship with the automobile. I made a selection of videos last year talking about a lot of these series, and I'm doing it again to make them even better. I suspect that the video today is going to be very nostalgic for an awful lot of you. We're looking at The Bill, which was broadcast between 1984 and 2010. So a very, very long-running programme, over 1,000 episodes, I believe. Now, the era of The Bill I want to concentrate on is from 84 to sort of the mid-90s. It's the era when the theme tune was still good. After 1998, the theme tune got bad. The series just descended into soap opera territory. It's just not the same, really. The originals, as fans of The Bill call them, were the first three series. They were broadcast between 84 and 87. And they weren't sort of like the later ones, where you had masses and masses and masses of episodes airing every year. This was about 11, maybe 12 episodes a season. It started off as an hour-long series. There was a pilot episode as part of Thames Television's storyboard anthology called Wooden Top. It was broadcast in 1983, and it starred Mark Wingett as PC Jim Carver and Trudy Goodwin as WPC June Ackland. These are the characters who are very familiar to me because both of them went right the way through to the sort of mid-late 2000s. Other people such as Reg Hollis, Tony Stamp, Bob Cryer, all these faces and names very familiar to so many of us. There were actually 3 different police stations at Sunhill, which was the area of London that sort of roughly equates to where Tower Hamlets is, although it's completely fictional. The borough was called Canley, which of course is an area of Coventry. The first one was actually in the East End of London. It was in Wapping. The reason they had to stop using that in about 1986 or 7 was because News International had an office in the area, and they were on strike, and they kept confusing the actors of real police officers. The second place was in North Kensington, kind of Ladbroke Grove area, Balby Road. That was an old record warehouse that they used up until about 1989. The landlord of the Balby Road property then wanted to refurbish the place, and so they had to move. The place they used for 20 years is in Merton. It's sort of south of Wimbledon. It's called Wimbledon Studios, but it's really not quite in Wimbledon. I mean, I'm lived in that area myself for about 11 years, so I'm very familiar with it, and it's not quite in Wimbledon really. It's closer to sort of Sutton, Merton, that sort of thing. That was an old wine warehouse that was then repurposed for being the police station, although the road always looks to me like an industrial estate and really quiet. So it's not quite the same as when you're on the Artichoke Hill place, which is sort of right near the river in Wapping. That's a very different type of a place than where they ended up, but obviously it's a lot more self-contained there. You're not going to get News International people wandering around, and it's just quicker to do filming. The bill ended in 2010 because of declining ratings and things like that. The later episodes of it really aren't very good. They changed the music several times, and the last year they had somebody completely redo the theme tune. It sounds nothing like it. Classic theme tune, obviously from 84 to 88. They used the simpler version. The best one for me is the one between 88 and 98. It was written by Andy Pask and Charlie Morgan. It's called Overkill. If you can find the 7-inch version from 1988, then you're doing well. It's got a lovely middle 8-bit in it. Title sequence clearly contains some cars that have become very famous. First a Rover ST1 and then a Ford Sierra. Later then the Vauxhall Vectra. It's probably a bit too late for what most of you want to see though. Is it worth watching the bill these days? Well, don't even know why I need to ask that question. Of course it is. The early series are really good. I couldn't believe when I looked it up in the data that I found on the internet about it, that Lloyd Shirley, the executive producer of the Sweeney, was also the executive producer of the bill between 84 and 87. And that really does go some way to explaining what it's like. It's a very, very, very good series in the early years. So the cars that you'll remember, and certainly I do, are the marked cars from the very first thing you see when the bill starts. One I remember is from Series 9 onwards. It is a 1992 Ford Sierra 2-litre LX K923ARX. I think that was supplied by a dealer in Reading. That remained on the fleet for some time. Other sort of Panda cars, they use Metros an awful lot. I could find loads of Metros. From the second series, there's an 84 Metro City X B260 MLX. From the fourth series, there is one before in a Series 3, but I have to sort of skip through a lot of this because there's so many episodes of the bill. In the fourth series, there's an 88 Metro City X E258 KWP. Looks very similar to the one from Series 2. By the time they come to Series 7, they went on to the Rover Metros. Then they won the 1.1Cs, the base models, H923 UNP, it's a 91 model. There was also the ones that you would have seen in the video just now, in terms of the still screen grabs I have. A Mark III Escort from Series 3 and a Mark II Transit from Series 3. Now, those are both wearing false plates, so I'm not going to even speculate as to how old they are. The Rover 3500 that you'll see from the title sequence, and that, bizarrely, is the best shot you get of it, that is also on false plates, so I presume it's an early kind of production model, maybe 76 or thereabouts. Rover 3500, and that's from the Series 2 titles, and that I think actually lasted quite a long time, probably until about 91 or something like that. One of the things that surprised me, I don't know why this is the sheer number of Mark II Vauxhall Cavaliers they used in the early years of the bill. They used loads of them, and these are just some of them. In the fifth episode of the second series, there's a Mark II Cavalier L with a false plate on it. In the ninth episode of the first series, Galloway buys a 1983 Vauxhall Cavalier 1.6L A242GLO. In the third episode of the second series, there's an 85 Cavalier L B679XKX. Now we get onto some Vauxhall press cars, definitely press cars. In the third episode of the third series, there are two of them. One's an 86 Cavalier L D44LNM. One's an 86 Cavalier base model, 1.6 base model, D281NMJ. And then a little bit more luxurious in the fourth series, the 16th episode, 87 Cavalier 1.6 GL D702 SPP. In the 60th episode of the 4th series, they made a lot more episodes per year after the 4th series. There's a Ford Capri Mark III, again that's on a false plate, so I don't know what year that is. In the 36th episode of Series 9, there is a fantastic car chase between one of the Sierra area cars, gosh that's hard to say, and a 1989 Vauxhall Senator 3 litre. That's F384TKV. That's absolutely trashed, actually. The car that Galloway has, I think, before his Cavalier is a 1978 Ford Cortina 1.6L. It's a Mark IV Cortina BBH 469T with some nice rust in the front valance there. There's a Ford Transit Mark II that gets chased on a false plate in the 5th series, the 59th episode of that one. In the 7th episode of the 2nd series, there's a 1975 Ford Cortina 2000D Mark III XBY383N that gets trashed and rolls over. In the 1st episode of the 3rd series, there's a Mark I Transit from 1975 HLL631N that's also used in the series King and Castle. And in the 6th episode of the 3rd series, there's a really bashed up 1977 Cortina Mark IV, again on false plates. One thing that I was reminded of when watching through some of the build title sequences is just how extremely grim the area looks in the East End of London in the 1980s. There's bashed up cars and grime, and it just looks really horrible. It's all been cleaned up now, but it wasn't the nicest place to be at the time, and that gives it some real character. A lot of the cars look a bit grotty too, as look at all these sort of bashed up Cortinas and Transits and things. Anyway, we'll just finish off by looking at some more interesting cars. In the 11th episode of the 2nd series, there's a 1977 Ford Escort Mexico, as a Mark II Mexico, TLF 930R. In the 7th episode of the 2nd series, there's a 1978 Ford Granada GL. It's a Mark II Granada, especially for Mr Coleman, a rubbish mechanic, XLL 238S. In the 10th series, the 106th episode of the 10th series, there is a 1984 Jaguar XJ6 Series 3 4.2 that takes a real beating and has a massive runaround with most of the cars around Sun Hill in a big chase. That's definitely a very memorable episode if you want to look that one up. I don't say the names of the episodes because often there actually aren't names of episodes, and it's just easier for me not to do that. In the 8th episode of the first series, there's a 1984 Talbot Solara LS, which I really sort of secretly want for some reason. I don't know why. A818KLE. In the 4th episode of the 2nd series, apparently this is the inspector's car, there is a 1985 Volvo 240, a very nice colour, B44PLP. The car that I most want, though, that I've seen from these early years of the bill, is a 1986 Austin Montego Vandenplatte EFI, which actually is definitely an Austin Rover press car. D323 BRW. I'd like that one, please, if anybody's ever seen it. And just to top it off, a very similar car to the final series of Cat's Eyes, a 1986 Ford Sierra GL in the 3rd episode of the 3rd series, where the Austin Montego is seen as well, D397RVW. there we are, just a very brief look at some of the cars from the early series of the Bill. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. Don't forget to like this video and leave a comment below. I will be covering more TV series this week. I've already done 4. We'll be doing up on tomorrow. Please don't forget to visit my Instagram page, Lloyd Vehicle Consulting, and then also my Facebook page, www.facebook.com/Lloyd Vehicle Consulting. Thank you ever so much indeed for watching.